Hey everybody, so we are today in Fort Indian Town Gap. We are at what is known as the Gratitude train car. This was actually a gift from France to the United States. Over 49 in total that were given to the United States. 48, one went to each state at the time, and then Hawaii, which was at that time was just wasn't a state yet. I think that was in 51 or 52, around the same time as Alaska. They were territory. So them and the DC, District of Columbia, wound out sharing the 49th of these cars. And it was just to say thank you for our service in World War I and World War II. This is a really cool memorial that's sitting right here in Indian Town Gap, across from the airport, where all the helicopters and cargo planes and that type of stuff. So you guys are here one of the helicopters right now. But I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to show you some of the different memorials, read the different things here, and then I'm going to show you go around the entire train car. And this is something I will say as well. Lewis is going to be putting from Simply Explo Venturing. When we went out and did the Lebanon Preservation, the historic preservation buildings, we actually stopped on the way over to Monroe Valley. So he does have a video coming out on this as well, that I will put the link on this video when that comes out, so you guys can check that out as well on his channel. So here we are. This is Triumph of Courage, was put in January 29th, 1999. Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge and Ardennes, that's the forest there in France, where some of the heaviest fighting took place other than Normandy. And obviously a lot of those different villages and towns, but that area was like brutal. The World War II Federation proudly dedicates this monument, and it says from December 16th, 1944 to January 25th, 1945. It's a monument to the 600,000 American men and women who in World War II fought 3 German armies in the Ardennes forests of Belgium and Luxembourg, and won the largest land battle ever fought by the U.S. Army. In the snow and sleet of bitter winter of 1944 through 1945, they turned an apparent defeat into what the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill called an ever-famous American victory. The veterans of the Battle of the Bulge. If you ever watch Band of Brothers, I've talked about Dick Winters a lot. They fought the airborne with him. They fought there, and it was absolutely brutal and just awful, like the worst circumstances possible. So this is the actual train car that they sent from France, Train de la Renaissance, France. And then you have all these different sort of almost like family crest type things, but they have like for the Champagne, Santo. I'm not even going to try to pronounce some of these because my Francais not very good. Hey, they even fought in Maine. But that was just, different name, and as stuff came over here. So you look at that, I didn't know that, but Maine apparently is a French name. And it makes sense because it's right there just south of like sort of French Canada, like Quebec. So you'd have a name like that. Yeah, this is just beautiful. I've never actually stopped here before, and I've been thinking about doing it for a while, but you can see all the different names then, just how stunning this is. And the upkeep, once again, Indian Town Gap does such a great job of upkeeping these different things. And this will all, I don't know if this will, but I know all the vehicles will be shifted over to the National Guard Museum at some point. They're going to have a setup much like the Carlisle Barracks and the War Museum. So I'm looking forward to when that happens, but I do want to do a video here, and then eventually I want to go over with that to film over there at the museum, because they're just phenomenal people, and then the work they do is just great. And looks like this actually has different ones. So you can see all of those there, up there on the top, and it has the different battlefields and different areas of France that were freed from German control. I'm sure there's stuff here from World War I as well. And we'll come around and we will read the plaque. Once again, the Gratitude train, that's in English here, and the other side is in French. But yeah, it's just one of those things that the French truly appreciated what we did for them, And you think about it as well, like we should appreciate what the French did for us, because the American Revolution, we would not have been freed from the British control if not for French supplying us with money, supplies, uniforms, all that kind of stuff. And it wouldn't have happened without them. And them obviously coming in, and Lafayette was one of the people that Washington, French officer, that he appreciated the most, and said without him and some of these other guys that came over from Europe to help us, we would not have succeeded. This 40 by 8 boxcar is one of 49 cars that comprise the Merci or Gratitude train, a gift to the American people from the citizens of France. Pennsylvania received it at a ceremony in Harrisburg on February 6, 1949. All 48 states received a boxcar filled with gifts ranging from humble offerings to priceless art and antiques. The District of Columbia and the Territory of Hawaii shared the 49th car. Gifts of sacrifice from individuals conveyed each donor's depth of gratitude to America for liberating France in 2 world wars and for sending the friendship train, a 40 million food relief effort carried out by American volunteers in 1947, which saved many French citizens from starvation. The 40 by 8 boxcars, so named because of their capacity to hold either 40 men or 8 horses, that's something I never knew. That's actually pretty cool. Transported soldiers and horses to and from French battlefields during World War I. Many World War II soldiers rode the boxcars as well. The Merci train boxcars now stand as a tribute to the sacrifices and bravery of American veterans who served in France in 2 world wars, and as a symbol of friendship and gratitude between the people of the United States of America and the citizens of France. And this was donated by the Questers of Pennsylvania. One cool thing I would say of note too, they talk about the friendship train that we sent over. It was actually quite cool. Herbert Hoover was much maligned, and Franklin D. Roosevelt could not stand Herbert Hoover. Like, they did not like each other at all. There was a lot of stuff that happened with the Great Depression. It was simply not Herbert Hoover's fault. It was just sort of circumstances, but he didn't react well to it. But FDR had a habit of really putting all the blame on Hoover and just treating him really badly. Now, Harry Truman, when he came into office after FDR died, he was the first. There's a really cool book that I read about the American presidents and how they've worked together since Truman. Truman thought one of the greatest assets that we have as presidents are former presidents. Why are we not utilizing them to help us? And after Truman, it changed the complexion of how the presidency was used and how former presidents then had a purpose after their presidency. So he went to Herbert Hoover because Herbert Hoover was very good. He had done a lot of work before, humanitarian efforts and those types of things, to help people that were starving. So he actually put him in charge, I believe, along with George C. Marshall. And I think they called it the Marshall Plan. But they worked together to come up with this plan, because you think after World War II, everything was devastated to the point where millions were going to starve. Like, you already had millions upon millions that had been killed by this war. Now you had the next big thing was going to be famine and disease. So they put together, with the help of Herbert Hoover, this friendship train for France and for all of Europe, and basically saved the lives of millions upon millions of people. And it's one of those things that's not really well known, and it should be well known, because Herbert Hoover is so maligned, but yet he was one of the best ex-presidents we have ever had. Like, the stuff that he was able to accomplish, and it was because of Harry Truman changing how the presidency worked. Because it was usually like your predecessors, you just sort of left them there because it was sort of the whole, probably somewhat from European, like the person that preceded you, you don't want to have them around because they could possibly, take you out again and take over power, which is never how American politics worked. But credit to Harry Truman for changing that policy, and credit to Herbert Hoover and George C. Marshall in creating this plan that saved so many millions of lives. And that's why this happened, because you got to think about it, like, French people, they had gone through so much. Not only the humiliation of defeat, then being treated so horribly by the Nazis, and going through absolute hell. And then not only does America come in, they spend their lives, their blood, their tears, everything they have in trying to defeat this evil regime with the Nazis, the Third Reich. But then they come in afterward and save people's lives. It's funny because you'll have sometimes like the media will be like, oh, everybody hates America. If you go over to other countries, that is not the case. Like, you have a certain group of people that, yes, they hate America. It is what it is. But you talk to most people, they absolutely adore America because they remember it. Because Europe, Europe, you know, is very different. It's sort of like how America used to be when we had more of an immigrant status. You had a lot of people coming over here. It was very community centered. Europe is very much like that yet. They have that very much that style of life where they remember the people that have done them well. And this is what they do. This is gratitude train. Just really a cool, phenomenal memorial and well worth remembering. So I'm glad I was able to bring you guys out here and you guys are able to come along. And we'll be doing a bunch of other cool things like this as well. So thank you as always for coming along. We'll see you about town. And remember, my friends, history, it's out there. It's right here in our back door.